October may be drawing to a close, the spooky month officially leaving us for another year, but that doesn't mean the spooks have to end. And if you're in the mood for just a little bit more, then there is Spooktober. This is a community map pack consisting of maps created by multiple authors, all brought together under one roof. Quite literally, in this case. Taking the form of a spooky mansion inhabited. How do you just habit something? Ow, my brain, ow! Basically, there's a bunch of monks stuck here, and because they're functionally incapable of ripping and tearing on their own behalf, they of course call upon the services of you, the goddamn Doom guy. You'll note that the hub area here is relatively light on the ripping and the tearing, and that's because the lion's share is reserved for the levels that lurk on the other side of these paintings, which you can interact with Mario 64 style to jump on through and fight whatever lurks on the other side. The first, of course, was Imperishable Fright, and as far as introductory levels go, this is a nice way to ease yourself in to the overall theme of Spooktober. It's not a excessively long level, it doesn't do anything particularly over the top in terms of concept, and really it's just a nice mood setter, if anything. Probably the most defining feature of this level will of course be the presence of a seemingly malevolent black cat. As it turns out though, not so malevolent. The cat will, at various points during the level, toss you weapons, keys, and even help guide the way, in what I found to be a pretty neat touch. All in all, I'd say a fairly enjoyable start to the spooky proceedings. The following level, Pumpkinhead, gets off to a much more violent start, kitting you out with a scythe that allows you to just thoroughly tear your way through this corridor full of former humans. It soon has you crossing over a lava bridge and entering into the more significant portion of the map itself. It's fair to say that this map is much more high concept in execution than the preceding one, featuring a smattering of graveyards where if you shoot the gravestones they will actually spawn enemies to fight against you. This map also features a number of roving, overgrown spider masterminds, which are certainly quite an intimidating sight to behold, magnified somewhat by their newfound ability to shoot plasma from their eyes. Thankfully, it's not too difficult to put a little bit of space between you and those pesky masterminds, considering that this map is fairly sprawling at this point, more in terms of distance than in complexity. And this also aids the other objective you've got here, which is searching high and low for very specific special Hell Knights that you'll need to kill in order to progress. Killing the Hell Knights opens up the giant Pumpkinhead, but it's not as simple as walking up to it to enter it. Instead, you have to go and find a teleporter somewhere else on the map in order to get inside. I found this a little unnecessarily faffy, just trying to backtrack to where I thought I maybe saw a teleporter earlier, and the sprawling nature of the map here doesn't really aid it in readability. As it happens, getting in and out of the pumpkin triggers the final challenge of this map, which is shepherding a bunch of oddly non-aggressive archviles back across the lava bridge that you entered the map from and onto a teleport pad. This is a little bit of a pain in the ass. Actually, that's an understatement. This is a massive pain in the ass. Not only are they contained within a bunch of these grave sites, but they will also just happily resurrect anything they can. So your best shot here is to make sure you thoroughly eviscerate anything in the immediate vicinity of these fellas, because they're easily distracted and they will res whatever's in front of them that still has a corpse capable of rising. This reached peak frustration for me right near the end, where they just kept rezzing this goddamn spectre. I kept having to kill it, and they kept wandering off, and they kept coming back, and guess what they kept doing? They kept rezzing the spectre. Screw you. But guess what? That ain't the end of it. The final portion of this map has you battling in an admittedly really cool looking upside down arena against a boss that I can only describe as the Cybervile. This has the combined attacks of not just being able to launch rockets at you, but also the ability to do the line of sight flame pillar that Archviles can typically do, making it a bit of a bastard. The last in this initial clutch of levels is entitled A Baron's Nightmare. More like my own personal nightmare, am I right? Am I right?
Please clap.
If I had to describe the opening section of this map, I'd probably describe it as feeling very haphazard. It doesn't feel like there's any overriding logic to the placement of the enemies here. They're just kind of thrown in, and you've just got to deal with it. Mercifully, this section is confined chiefly to this one room, and before you know it, you're traipsing around a labyrinth, getting spooked and mildly disorientated by your own reflection. The other side of the labyrinth will spit you out into an ethereal realm of platforms populated with barons, chain gunners, and archviles. Naturally, the archviles are going to punt you off the side with the flame pillars, but as you can see, the fall does not kill you. Instead, it mercifully deposits you back in that initial section of map and tasks you with simply backtracking your way to where you originally fell, which doesn't take all that long. The construction of this map is fairly compact, all things considered, so it doesn't really get a chance to get too annoying with the toing and froing, and these situations don't typically take too long for you to figure out how best to approach them. Have to give additional props to this section for making good use of non-Euclidean geometry. Having the space inside this door be bigger than the space on the outside always pleases me, always find it fun, and of course, the end of this map involves a big old fight against the spider Mastermind, which initially looks like you're going to have to face down two of them until you realize that the area is actually just mirrored at the back. Beating this initial clutch of levels will cause one of the barriers in the building to disappear, allowing you to explore deeper into the building and obviously tackle more levels. Happily, it's not just additional paintings and levels that you'll get to interact with, but also additional monks littering the various sections of the house, each of which adding something a little extra to the backstory of the various goings-on within, and just giving you a nice sense of progression as you move from one section to the next. It's certainly worth poking your nose around as much as possible in the hub, because who knows, you may stumble across an Easter egg or two. For the sake of brevity, or at least something resembling that, I'll be keeping it brief with regards to the rest of the maps available here in Spooktober, with view to cherry-picking a few favourites along the way. For whom it is reserved is probably one of the more visually moody maps in the Spooktober collection. That thunderous sky with the occasional flutter of lightning is certainly a nice touch, and the map also gains points for introducing a pumpkin-coloured caco. Quite a fan of the doors during the course of this map as well, particularly this one. I love that red ominous light glowing out from the pentagram, but one thing that always trips me up with maps that use custom textures for things like doors and switches is it takes me a while to figure out that they are, in fact, actually doors and switches. The Unpowered Spaceship is a bit of an odd duck of a level. It certainly got the right idea with regards to its choice of setting and usage of moody lighting. However, all of that feels somewhat undermined by the choice of soundtrack. I feel less like I'm taking a tension-filled stroll through the darkened halls of a spaceship teeming with dangerous demons, and more like I'm searching for the light switch so I can mix myself more pina coladas. Avarice gets off to a good start by locking you in its opening room and giving you a good old-fashioned shake until you start to worry about what might be happening outside. Also, good choice of calendar. As it turns out, the demons have invaded again. Good grief, who could possibly have seen that one coming? Curiously, this is a map that also furnishes you with a BFG in relatively short order, which I feel somewhat undercuts any potential tension that could have been built through the gameplay here. And again, the same kind of issue with regards to the soundtrack pervades this map. It's just a little too nice. It's a little too pleasant and a little too jolly. I'm severely undernourished in my diet of spooks here. We gotta step it up. And now you see, this is more like it. You've got that uncomfortably fleshy visual aesthetic. You've got that discordantly creepy soundtrack plinking away in the background. And wouldn't you know it, even the name of this map just makes me feel wrong. This is the Crimson Flog. If there's any doubt, I do feel that this map is atmospherically perfect. It is right on the button, and I really enjoy the usage of skybox in this as well. It lends a really dreamy, surreal nature once the fleshy hallways run out and you emerge into this particular section here. I can't help but feel, however, that it does drop the ball somewhat with regards to the end. Dragging us back from the uncomfortably fleshy precipice of the Crimson Flow into more traditionally light-hearted, spooky environments is the Graveyard Shift. This one's much more involved in terms of map complexity, leading to a few situations where I was just running around in circles like an idiot because I missed an obvious switch or doorway. All in all, fairly challenging map. Gets rather intimidating towards the end as the map gets flooded with enemies on your way to the exit, and also features a delightfully proggy soundtrack choice too. I'd say that one of the more memorable maps here in Spooktober would certainly be Deep Sea. This is a much more survival horror inflected experience compared to the rest, and starts off by practically stripping you down to nothing. You start with 20 points of health, you've got no weapons to speak of besides your fists, and it takes its own sweet time when it comes to introducing you to something nasty that wants to rip your face off, doing a damn effective job of building the tension and really immersing you in the environment of this abandoned deep sea lab. This map also does a fantastic job at taking advantage of atmospheric lighting and actually transitioning that into gameplay, what with the availability of flares. This will help you light your way through various sections, as well as potentially uncover useful things for you to take advantage of, such as a shotgun that's in this area that I completely missed because it was in the dark on the back of the truck that I just managed to not throw my goddamn flare at. So guess who's fisting everything in the face for a while? This guy. Eventually, I bumbled my way back to a position where I could acquire a gun, and as a result, the survival horror feeling of this map did diminish ever so slightly, and that's less because of the usage of the weapons themselves, and more because of the, I feel, overabundance of ammunition. There's just a lot of it kicking around, and I never really felt like I was in too much danger of running out. I'd say that navigation in this map seems to get trickier the deeper you get into it. Usage of keycards not only grants you access to new areas, but also opens shortcuts to previously visited ones, and because of the knotted and seemingly convoluted nature of this map, I found myself getting lost quite easily. I lost that crucial thread of progression through the map and ended up getting quite frustrated trying to divine the way forward. As for what exactly went wrong down here in the deep sea, well, they dug too deep, they dug too far, and of course they pissed off old man Cthulhu, because, quite frankly, it's always Cthulhu. Actually, come to think of it, Cthulhu is a lot smaller than I last remember. Also dies a heck of a lot quicker. I'm starting to think this isn't Cthulhu. Maybe it's his idiot cousin, Barry. Alone in the Dark is fun. A nice little homage to horror classic Alone in the Dark. No, not the film. Christian Slater doesn't like talking about that one anymore. He's gone on to bigger and better things. Of course, we're talking about the original Alone in the Dark games here, the one where you play as a dapper-looking gentleman with a sweet mustache by the name of Edward Carnby. That said, this map is much more of a visual homage to Alone in the Dark over the actual content of the gameplay. You've got your standard demon-blasting mayhem, which is a nice change of pace, if I'm going to be honest, from the survival horror shenanigans of the preceding map, and it's not without its neat little touches here and there. One aspect I quite enjoyed was searching various rooms for switches to cause useful items to rise out of chests. You'll have seen me fiddle with one at the start of this section with the piano and the ice switch. That was pretty neat. There's also the occasional fiendish touch, such as a room with a hurt floor that you won't see coming at first, and is pretty annoying when you've got low health. But overall, I'd say I had quite an enjoyable time with this one. It felt a heck of a lot less convoluted in construction than the preceding map, despite its survival horror inspiration. Pleasingly, it even manages to find time for a reasonably fun boss battle at the end too, against this kind of derpy-looking pillar. In terms of how this fight operates, it's kind of similar to the Icon of Sin. Enemies will continually spawn in on these teleport pads, and if you kill enough of them, a switch will appear that will allow you to drop the defenses of the pillar and deal direct damage to the actual boss itself. All in all, pretty enjoyable. Quite like this map. I've got mixed feelings about Large House of Illusions. On one hand, it's a map that quite enjoyably screws around with the player. Little moments here and there designed to catch you off guard. On the other hand, I think I just feel mildly salty about this map because there's a locked door joke that permeates the entire map, forcing you to hump every door you see because you don't know. You don't know whether it's the one that actually leads you somewhere you need to go, and the game flashes up a pithy message every damn time you do it. How dare you mock me? How dare you? As you can imagine, there's a lot of fiendish misdirection contained within this map, which should be obvious considering it's called Large House of Illusions, but it does a really deft job of setting up that expectation that something might just be about to happen before pulling it away, and then bringing it back when you least expect it. You know, the more I think about this map, the more I come around to the fact that I actually quite enjoy what it's doing. It's poking you, it's making you feel uncomfortable, it's wrong-footing you as often as it possibly can before drawing you into a enticing darkened room and pretty much dropping an anvil on your head. Mansion of Despair. It's a mansion filled with despair. Seems about right. Doubly so considering once I got done murdering this imp to death, I couldn't actually figure out how to get out of this room. I humped the door. I humped it good. Did it open? Did it heck? I mean, it eventually opened, but I had to apparently hump it in a very precise manner for it to eventually creak open, and then I could actually get on with the level proper. A level that somehow made me feel tremendously guilty because I ended up busting into a bathroom and disturbing a poor innocent demon's bath time. So yeah. Despair is the theme. Despair that I can't own one of these adorable looking Doom Guy plushies. Despair that this picture is just too spooky for me. Despair that, honestly, at this point, I was getting a little fatigued of the whole haunted mansion setup. Just so many haunted mansions. Good grief. Like any mansion worth its salt, it's got a library for you to get lost in, bonus points for the Castlevania music over the top of it, but unfortunately, the section does drag on ever so slightly, what with you having to visit practically every corner of the damn thing before you have to continue. All things considered though, it's very partitioned into sections, this map. You got the opening, you got the library bit, and then you feed on into the final confrontation here, which involves Archvile playing the organ, so bonus points for that. And also some unholy Spider Mastermind Cyber Demon hybrid surrounded by a crap ton of enemies. So yeah, that's the thing. Thanks for that. So with all those levels firmly in my rearview mirror, I unlock the final barrier to the Nightmare Fuel Arena, whereupon I face down the Nightmare Lord himself. Wow, I can almost hear him yelling in my head. As you might imagine, this is a bit of a beefy boss fight. It doesn't really have any gimmicky sections, it's pretty damn straightforward, all things considered. It really just boils down to that age-old pro tip of shooting it till it dies. But the thing about that is, it's got a chunker of a health bar. This thing takes a long time to whittle down, so it becomes one of those fights where you really need to focus, you really need to keep your attention on what the boss is doing and dodging its potential attacks. Of those attacks, it's got a number of them. It can do a slam attack if it gets too close to your face. It can generate clones, which can shoot projectiles at you, so best take them out ASAP. It can also rain down projectiles from the sky, which is probably my least favorite move that it pulls out because there doesn't really seem to be any kind of pattern to that attack. It feels very RNG when I take hits from it, but all things considered, this map is very well stocked when it comes to both ammunition and health. As long as you're sensible about how you pick them up, you can easily survive for the duration. And you know what? Survive I did. I don't know what it was that helped me focus down for this entire fight first time through. Maybe it was the music. Maybe it put me in a Dark Souls state of mind. But everything felt suitably grand, felt momentous, felt big for a final boss battle to cap off the Spooktober Community Map Pack. And I gotta say, I really enjoyed this. It made me feel like a badass for conquering it. And when it comes to boss battles, that's the feeling you want to give the player by the time they're done with it. Oh wait, did you think we were done here? Did you think that was it? That's where you're wrong, kiddo. There are multiple extra secret levels contained within Spooktober. They are, quite frankly, difficult as all hell to find. So much so that I haven't actually found them on my own yet. I went and typed in some console commands so I could jump to the secret maps and just, you know, check them out without wanting to gouge my own eyeballs out, humping every wall possible in the hub. But nonetheless, there is an interesting bunch of levels for you to experience here if you've got the will to search them out for yourself. This one in particular is kind of weird. This has you captured by a character called Uncle Reggie and forced to run through his dungeon of nefarious level design and demons, and he's constantly goading you the entire time, to such an extent that by the time I reached the end of it, I was fully ready, willing, and able to kick his goddamn teeth in. If you want to know what it is that really sent me over the edge, it was this section. God, I hate nukage labyrinths. Good grief. This next one is legitimately great. This is a map that strips you of your weapons. You don't gain any for the duration of it either, but the objective is pretty simple, pretty straightforward. All you've got to do is hunt down the keycards, take them to the exit, and leave. Sounds simple, right? Well, about that. As soon as you pick up the first key, you start getting pursued by that little bastard from Clock Tower with the scissors. The next map follows on from that theme, and I couldn't tell you what's going on. Ain't got a clue. I don't know where these characters are from, but I get the sense that they're a reference to something. Either way, they're creepy as all heck, and I'd very much like it to stop now, please. Hey, do you like killing goat demons? How about killing goat demons for 15 minutes straight? Yeah? Jeez. Okay. You'll enjoy this one then. And so, Spooktober draws to a close. Did I enjoy my time with it? Of course I did. It's always interesting running through a community map pack because you're never entirely sure what you're gonna get. There's always room for surprises, there's always room for experimentation, and I always love seeing what various authors are gonna come up with, especially when it comes to dealing with a particular theme. On that front, if this is your first bit of exposure to the idea of a community map pack, you should know that there is a significant number of these kicking around. A variety of themes, a variety of mappers, a variety of experiences for you to sink your teeth into. So if you feel like you're in a little bit of a rut and you don't know where to turn when it comes to finding new maps to play, I'd say find yourself a community map pack and just enjoy. If you need some pointers on where to get started with all of these map packs, well, this one right here is certainly a great choice. Link as usual in the description below, but another great set to check out would be the Dump projects. These are venues for mappers of all levels of experience to just throw their hats into the ring and see what they can make. And the nice thing about that is the rest of us get to enjoy them. So definitely give those a try. While I'm at it, I'd like to carve out a little bit of time here and give a great big thank you to my wonderful patrons over on Patreon. Thank you so very much for supporting the channel and for helping to make content like this possible. If you're interested in lending a hand yourself, maybe you'd like to see your name in the credits, maybe you'd like to gain early access to my videos before anyone else, heck, maybe you just enjoy the smell of burning money. If that's the case, you'll find the link to my Patreon page also in the description below. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Feel free to let me know what you thought in the comments, and feel free to suggest any mods you'd like to see me cover in future editions of Doom Mod Madness. This has been Mr. Icarus. Thank you very much for watching. What? What the fuck? What are you doing in here? Get away. Get away! Get away from me!